What's going on, guys? I think because of the lag, somebody commented that I always look like I'm staring off into space in the beginning of the streams, but I think you guys get like a full minute of lag or something before it catches up to where I'm actually at. But so if that's happening, I apologize. If not, good. We have a few interesting things to discuss tonight, and the first thing that I want to mention is that we're about to hit 1 million views. And considering this channel was demonetized and shadow banned years ago, it's pretty amazing to see that we have made it that far. We're almost to 9,000 subscribers, 10,000 just around the corner. I want to thank the people that have sent support in the form of contributions during the music streams that used to pay most of our bills before demonetization. And somehow we've started to actually get enough views again that they're starting to help with the bills again. So that's really gratifying. To play music and actually get paid for it is a dream of every musician. So again, thank you all so much for that. And then I want to thank Vishal for joining the Illuminati, my Patreon. And remind you, in case you didn't see the message on Patreon, that you should go back and watch the Masonic Degree 28 streams from the very beginning, because I think a lot of the stuff that you're intuiting that you need to learn is probably all going to be found in those streams. By the way, you guys do hit the like button. I think the algorithm ignores me no matter what, but it's still nice to try. So yeah, so a couple of really interesting things this week. One of those topics is that I think I have figured out how to organize everything I've learned from, studying the occult and the mystery traditions and psychedelics and neuroscience, physics, all these things that I've had my nose buried in since I was 12 years old. It's been a pretty obvious necessity for me to figure out how to make something out of it, to arrange it so that it's, a useful system. And in order for it to be useful, it also has to be innovative. If it already exists, who cares? And the reality is that so many of these, new agey spiritual systems and I guess you could call them disciplines very loosely, are really just repackaged older ideas. And if I couldn't contribute anything that was like genuinely meaningful, I'm not going to, contribute anything at all. And I think over the last, 6 months or so, the final pieces have fallen into place that have really allowed me to understand what is it I'm doing and how I can communicate that to people in an orderly fashion so that there's a process that people can adapt and use in order to integrate these things into their life and make meaningful changes. Of course, the fundamental thing is self-knowledge and really an independence from fear of judgment and the criticisms and expectations of other people. That was something that was really hitting me today, that I just feel so lucky that I somehow dodged that bullet, and I've never really had any concern at all about the expectations of other people. Occasionally I get some sort of criticism from people that watch a video or two on this channel and they feel like I don't conform to, what they expect a shaman to do or what they expect a spiritual teacher to be. And, my response to that has always been that I never put any of those labels on myself, and I don't feel any obligation to conform to any kind of expectations or ideas or, anything at all. And I think one of the most powerful things that I can offer and share with people is the path to that kind of liberation, where your social constructs have been dissolved, your political doctrine have been erased, your religious conditioning is gone. All of these things are necessary to predicate any kind of real, development and to allow you to really, engineer yourself consciously is the first prerequisite of the Mystery Club. A lot of the spiritual systems that have become very popular a big reason they're so popular is because they facilitate spiritual bypassing, and they also misdirect people or redirect their attention away from themselves in the present moment and to past lives and the possibility that they are star seeds or avatars of some creature from another dimension. And what they're really doing is allowing the person to subvert their attention away from their own development, their own processes, their own strengths and weaknesses, and create a fantasy reality that is sort of a pacifier, but it's not really productive in the long run. This is one of the big dangers of psychedelics as well. A lot of people liberate themselves from the matrix mind and the constraints of the modern ontology, and they use that as sort of a leverage to pry themselves out of reality, and they end up drowning in fantasy. So I'm really happy to feel like I've managed to survive spiritual evolution without falling in. I mean, no, I'm not saying I never fell into any of those traps, because I definitely did to some extent. In the early part of the process, I definitely adopted some New Age ideas, and everybody makes mistakes, including Russel Brand, apparently. And I am going to get into that. I almost don't want to talk about it. I know a lot of people in this community are, don't agree with me, the position that I've taken. And I honestly wasn't going to make so many posts about it until I saw the reaction of people in this community. Some of them I found downright disconcerting, to put it mildly, like really, really concerning. Not about, whether or not they agree with me, but just some of the comments that were made in regards to like whether he did some of these things or not. It's pretty frightening. But before we get into that, I just want to mention, just so you guys are aware, also, this alien thing is something that I've been following pretty closely because I have my own experiences with that whole subject, I guess, and I've never really decided what to make of it exactly. I have never come to an absolute conclusion about what happened to me and all of the other people in that town, Durango, Colorado, in 2011. But there were certain criteria that were met that kind of established the thing as objectively real to some extent, right? So multiple witnesses in separate locations that had no connection with each other than me, right? Like they didn't know each other. I knew them all, but they didn't know each other. None of them knew each other. And there were 5 people, and they were from all kinds of different demographics, Mexican gangbanger, ex-gangbanger, bandito, a 9-year-old kid, my girlfriend and I, the printer was also our sound man that worked behind where I worked at the time. So, it's difficult to dismiss an experience when it comes with those kind of circumstances. And of course, you guys, if you follow my channel, probably a lot of the other stories, or I've seen what were apparently vessels, even on 2 occasions where I was telling someone that, Golden Light Eagle and these other Native American people that we met with in New Mexico told us that some people are telepathically linked to it. And sometimes when I talked about it, they would show up, and that happened twice. And then I saw a guy on YouTube, African-American gentleman, that called the news station and said the same thing. And then when they came, the thing showed up. So, this is not unique to me by any stretch of the imagination. And one of the things I find the most interesting about it is that we all received the same message, apparently telepathically, because no words were exchanged. And I was told, by Golden Light Eagle that the star tribes communicate telepathically. The supposed leaks from Area 51 everywhere else say also that they communicate telepathically. And, there are other consistencies. There is this idea that there's information being transmitted from Sirius. I experienced that to the extent that I was able to actually verify the things that I received were actually true, and they were, and there's no way I would have known them because I have no knowledge of astrophysics. And then, Sirius turned out to have this connection to the Blue Lodges and Freemasonry, and also the Hopi, who have secret handshakes just like the Masons. They also consider Sirius to have some sort of influence. And then after I drank ayahuasca and received this information from Sirius, I discovered that the Sequoia, who are an Ecuadorian tribe, interestingly, not too far away from here, like maybe 5 hours down in Cuyabeno. They also have said that they receive information from that star and point to Sirius. So, and that's not all. There's lots of other connections. The Zulu talk about this. They actually claim to have received marijuana from the dog star, and it is actually the most sophisticated plant on Earth. I don't know if that justifies considering it maybe alien, but if I was, if I was going to accuse any plant on Earth of being extraterrestrial, it would probably be that one. And so, there are other little details that have come up even recently that have really gotten my attention. And one of them is that, the first experience that I had nothing to do with actual physical aliens, but I ate an incredibly high dose of mushrooms. I have no idea how much it really was because they were kind of wet still, but it was this giant burrito, and I ate the thing until I was like stuffed. I don't know why I did this. Something like drove me to keep eating it because I realized that my stomach felt full and that I already felt sick just from eating. So I literally like crammed myself full of mushrooms. And of course, I blacked out and ended up on this spaceship with these aliens in suits. And they told me that there are rules, sort of. They're not really rules in the way that we understand rules, but there are restrictions, I guess, that are kind of implied by universal law, not by intergalactic law or any law of man. And part of the reason for that necessity is that when people are enlightened, when they have lived, millions of years, the culture has existed, for millions of years, gnosis occurs collectively, invariably, or they end up running themselves into extinction, which makes perfect sense. This is why there are no evil races of aliens here on Earth. Some people dispute that, but at least the position of these beings, and later I found out Stephen Greer said this. I don't know how credible he is anymore, but it does seem he was credible in the beginning. Dolores Cannon also said that. I had never heard her talk until a week ago. And it makes sense. You guys remember the time the Nazis took over the Earth? No? What about Stalin? No? Okay. Well, what about, you know what I mean? Like, they always fail. So, and that's the thing, they all destroy each other before they can get off their rock. And it totally makes sense that if you don't achieve this illumination, you're eventually, look at us. We've had technology for 150 years. We're almost gone. We're on the brink of total destruction, which brings me to our next point. That I was told that they do not intervene until the absolute last minute when the species is on the brink of destroying the planet. And here's the thing. It's not about us. It's not about humans. Nobody cares about humans. Humans don't even care about humans. Aliens definitely don't care about humans. It's about the fact that the Earth is part of a living macrocosm, the planet itself. The collective life of it serves a purpose very similar to the kind of purpose that an organ in your body serves, according to, these aliens. And incredibly, I found a video the other day where Dolores Cannon described everything that I was told by these aliens on this spaceship down to the smallest detail. I was really shocked to see this. And so this week it was announced that the U.S. Congress is going to review a video that was supposedly leaked by naval intelligence. I've seen it. I don't know what to think of it. I mean, Alien, honestly, to me, I don't want to say it looks fake because it doesn't really. But I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure what to think of it. But I guess there's good reason to believe that it's legitimate. And Congress is going to take a look at it this week. So I'm not making any judgments about the video. I'm not saying that. I just thought that, given my experience with this, I'm certainly interested in watching it all unfold. Project Bluebeam, that whole thing was put out there by a fundamentalist Christian woman that supposedly worked for the CIA. But the whole motivation there is that they want to believe in Jesus, and their religion is threatened by the possibility of aliens. So that's all that is. Most conspiracy theories have their roots in Christian fear. And, although I do suspect some conspiracy theories of having substance and validity, I certainly am not on board for most of them. I think that in general, conspiracy theories tend to be just about as embarrassing as, muggles say that they are. And probably a lot of that is deliberate, just making us all of us free thinkers kind of associated with people with wind whistling through their ears. Very effective strategy. But yeah, so that's happening. If it does turn out to be real, then that'll be pretty remarkable, because we're all just kind of waiting to see if we can get an actual living alien. Another thing that I've noticed is that Dolores Cannon and also a lot of these reports, my perception was that they were not physically here, that they're interdimensionals, and that's something that's been expressed by a lot of these whistleblowers. And so do please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. There are also you can support us in the chat. There are addresses where you can send gifts, because we're demonetized, and so without you guys doing that, we get nothing. All right, and then I saved the dumbest for last, because why not? But what's his name? Russel Brand. I have always gotten fake, sleazy, gross Hollywood narcissist ego bullshit vibes from that guy. I've never liked him. I always felt like he was a complete fraud, and I was not one bit surprised to hear these allegations about him, because it just, it seemed to me like he was probably trying to start a cult, and if at first, this is what really got me, and I think this might be useful for just about anyone that's observing the world. We have to do some of it through the medium of an intermediary. We can't have all of our eyes on everything. I serve that purpose to some extent for a lot of you. And so, when Russell Brand first started doing his podcast, I felt like he was one of the very few people that I kind of identified with. He seemed like he was coming from a similar place of questioning both political parties, and just kind of objectively questioning all of the cultural landmines and all of that stuff. But over time, he increasingly started to just kind of regurgitate mostly right-wing narratives, whatever was popular a few days before. He's just right behind the trends, just regurgitating whatever's already there. And there's never been anything on his podcast that wasn't already on YouTube. People talk about how he was exposing BlackRock and he was exposing the World Economic Forum. It's not true at all. It's not even remotely. There's no truth to that at all whatsoever. He may have been pointing a bigger light at it, but those guys are on video. It's public. There's nothing hiding it. There's no exposing something that's not hidden. It doesn't even make sense. The logic that he was framed because he's going against the elites is just completely empty. There's no substance to it. All he ever did was, repost clips from other people's YouTube channels and comment on it. And then, he's rubbing Noah Harari's head and kissing him and talking about how beautiful of a person he is. He had him on the show twice, and people were just making so many excuses for this guy. And he had him on the show twice. He knows what the guy's about. He knows what Schwab is about. He knows that guy's his right-hand man. He's got connections to the Rothschilds romantically back in the day, I guess. I mean, he is just serving the purpose of creating the illusion that there's people out there that are exposing them, and there's still freedom in the world, basically, and freedom of press, and there are people that are allowed to exercise their rights of free speech and call out the WEF by putting videos up that are already on YouTube, I guess. Like, wow, how revolutionary. You know what I mean? It's just silly. The guy didn't do anything. And, people are saying these are just allegations without any substance to them. That's absolutely not true. Everyone that's ever been around that guy, I spent like an hour and a half the other day digging. It wasn't very hard, but apparently his kind of pedo-y, sleazy, narcissist, abusive behavior is normal for him, and that's how he's always been. I can tell just by looking at him. I mean, I don't understand how he ever fooled anyone. Don't mean to be condescending, but it's true. When I see that guy and his smile and stuff, it's like I just get like feel dirty inside just looking at him. So, and that's how I always felt about it. But the sending text to a 16-year-old girl in the middle of the night, apologizing for things with being very careful not to explicitly state what's being apologized about, he's guilty of sin. And then all the people at the BBC and the people that have been around him all these years all have stories. So, I really don't think that the elite have gone and paid off all the people around this guy his entire life to say all this crap. And they planted what? They planted text messages 20 years ago or whatever it was, 15 years ago in this girl's cell phone at 1 a.m. so that they could frame him later or something. I mean, it's just dumb. It's not real. He's guilty as hell, and, he's fake. And I think people need to understand, like RFK Jr., in theory, I support him 100%. Everything I've heard him say just out. I think there's maybe one notable exception. I don't even remember what it was. But in general, he's saying exactly what you would hope that a presidential candidate would come along and say right now. But there's always that guy. Every single election, Bernie was a little bit more polarizing because he kind of seemed like he might be communist or something. He's promoting socialism and driving around in a $300,000 car. Little bit silly. In my opinion, they're all puppets. None of it's real. I don't understand how anyone could believe in Joe Biden or Donald Trump or any of these people. It's all a show. It's all a spectacle. They're all there to divide. They're all here to create confusion, and people like Russel Brand are still contributing to that. They're still feeding you some variation on very popular narratives that don't actually do any harm to any of the elites. There's no function to it. You have to understand that. If there is a consequence of something that someone is saying, then there's damage. But this is just spewing stuff that's already being spewed all over the place. And it's, what I mean? It's literally meaningless. It doesn't do anything. And, even the idea that we have to, that they need to keep people fooled and that they're threatened by people exposing stuff. All kinds of stuff has been exposed. I don't see people picking up pitchforks and lighting torches and going wherever. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't see anyone really doing anything. That's why, personally, my agenda has really changed because I used to imagine making a contribution to a collective revolution and trying to encourage people to free their minds from the mind-forged manacles of society and culture and politics and religion. And I felt that I was pretty, effective at doing that. And back in like 2000, there was a whole lot of other people that I could see joining me in that. I don't know where the fuck they all went. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know how they got, well, I do. They used the Obama administration to lull most of them back to sleep and get them to trust the government, and they swallowed them up, most of them. And luckily, a few of us weren't dumb enough for that, but it looks like they did slurp up most of the people that I would have expected to join me in my efforts to make some real change in the world. And so now I'm focusing more on the individual level, people around me, people that I feel like I can build some kind of community with, and that we can maybe make something together, because I really don't see, it's just hard to imagine that it's viable for the collective to really put the brakes on and reorient their trajectory with the kind of speed and aplomb, and subtlety that is really necessary to turn the ship around in the current state and speed of it all. It's just, I don't think it's that viable. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to try. I'll be there if it looks like we can get something done. But for me, it's more about working with my immediate community. Even if I could go to the bank and get a loan at this point to try to move our business and expand and all that we were trying to do, I wouldn't do it. If I can't do that amongst the people in this community, I'm just not going to do it. I can't contribute to that. I don't want to be involved with it. So it's all community based, person to person, soul to soul, heart to heart, mind to mind for me. We're not doing any dancing with the devil in the pale moonlight. Yeah, and I see a lot of people talking about how there's a lot of people that have their hopes in RFK and stuff. It's the same kind of mentality that leads people to put their trust in somebody like Russel Brand. Everybody wants to believe there's a hero. There's somebody in high places that has their interest at heart and is going to take care of them. And you know what? It might be true of RFK Jr. His family was mostly murdered probably by the people that he wants to go up against. So I think it's actually possible that against all odds, there actually is someone in Washington that wants to do the right thing for the right reasons. But there's no way in hell that it's going to happen. There's no way in hell. The elections are not real in the United States. If you still believe that, you need clinical help. Like, it's just silly. 11-year-old girl hacked the voting machines. It's ridiculous. There's just no reason to. It's like a religious belief. All of the evidence suggests that it's not possible. So if you believe in it still, it's just like believing in Jesus or the Easter Bunny or any of that stuff, American democracy is on the same wavelength as Jesus and the Easter Bunny and all of that other kind of stuff. It's just not. It's not a belief that's based on evidence. It's just hope and delusion. There's no reality to it. And again, even if there was, I don't know that I would want the American public choosing people that can push bombs that, blow up the whole planet. They don't seem fit to me for democracy. That's why Plato and Socrates hated democracy. If you don't have an educated, enlightened populace, then it's just really bad idea anyways. So, yeah, sure, go ahead, write his name in on the ballot, but I personally would like to see people just stop putting their hopes on the shoulders of presidents. And it's just crazy, this mentality, my president, like all that kind of crap. What is wrong with people? And I can tell you, it's the primate instinct. In a primate group, there is an alpha male, and everyone emulates them and they protect them and all of that. And so that's all it is. It's just this leftover monkey psychology. And the reality is, I say this all the time, until the consciousness of all of the people changes, the people in high places and the people in low places, it doesn't matter who you put in the White House. It doesn't matter, or who they put in the White House. It doesn't matter what system you implement. It's not the systems, as far as I can tell. It's the people that are abusing the systems that determines whether they're good or bad. Right-wingers hate to hear this, but if you look at an index of happiness in the world, which to me is the only metric that matters, right? If you think that, they're way happier than us, but they can't keep as much of their money, then you're literally an idiot. I'm sorry. There's no nice way to put it. You know what I mean? If you think that the fact that your taxes would be 10% higher is more important than where you fall on the scale of happiness, there's something seriously, seriously wrong with you, and it's called indoctrination, But the happiest countries on earth are democratic socialism is their system, Just facts. Even Tucker Carlson, live on Fox News, and probably the real reason he got fired, and one of the reasons that he's like one of the only ones of those people that I actually like at all, and I hated him at first. But he seemed to actually be waking up in front of our eyes. And somebody came on Fox News and explained to him what democratic socialism was. And I couldn't believe it, man. He just was like, really? Wow, that's got my vote. Then that's amazing. And then, of course, he was fired like a week later. But, that's not the point. The point is just that what we have to work on is our own individual consciousness, because the only way that we can hope to effectively influence other people is by leading by example and having success from that. We have to create independence, and we have to set an example that is enviable, because otherwise no one's going to care. And we have to get better at doing that. I think that the way that a lot of people end up rejecting the system and rejecting culture and rejecting tradition becomes counterproductive in the end. They have the right idea, but they fuck up on the delivery. dyeing your hair blue and becoming a vegan and, protesting families or whatever is that's not going to help anything. In my opinion, maybe I don't know anything, but it doesn't seem to be working so far. Let me check in with the chat again. I haven't looked at that in a while. Yeah, Vermin Love Supreme. That is. Oh man, are you serious? Clipping again? I changed it right before I got on the. Right before I got on, we fixed it because it was messed up again. Back to the wrong setting on its own. Isn't that cute? All right, well, it should be gone now, but that's too bad because I feel like there was some valuable stuff here, and I know that clipping is really obnoxious, so people probably won't hear much of it. But yeah, and by the way, there are still spaces in our October, which is next month. So that retreat is still open. You can come for any part of it, even if it's the last week, the last 3 days, whatever. There's still a couple spots open. And then we've decided to do November and maybe December as well, since we didn't, some things didn't go quite as we were expecting. And so we have had to re-engineer our plans. So if you are interested in coming to the Amazon and spending a month or a week or a few days or 2 weeks or whatever it is with us, then send me an email at junglegnosis at junglegnosis@proton.me. So yeah, I mean, that's basically it, you guys. Stop with the hero worship. There's nobody with a major platform that is a champion of the people. It's not going to happen. It's not Russel Brand. It's not Donald Trump. It's not Joe Biden. It's none of those people. None of those people are sincere. None of it is real. And it's just really sad for me to see people constantly investing in these people that to me are just repulsive narcissists that, very obviously are just playing a role that is counterproductive. So that's, why I feel like the path to autonomy is so important. It's not just about negating the potential influence of the expectations of others and being concerned about the judgments of other people and any of that stuff. It's also about the fact that you do not feel like you need a leader. And, I often talk about how, crisis of purpose is the number one cause of addiction. And, trauma also, but at the root of those traumas is generally the crisis of purpose. That's, behind the overwhelming majority of all of our modern suffering. And evolving our consciousness and changing the way we think ultimately leads to this autonomy, because when you have done that and you've freed yourself from the mores of culture and social culture and psychology and just all of that stuff, when you've cut those sandbags, you are not in need of governance because you can conduct yourself in a way that is positive and productive, without constraints being imposed on you by law and under threat of fear. But one of the things I don't mention a lot is that one of the other consequences of that that's so important is that people don't feel like they need a leader. You don't need a hero anymore because you're your own hero. You're your own leader. You become your own shaman. And that is really the only antidote to the conundrum that we find ourselves in as a civilization. It's all about self-knowledge and self-liberation and empowerment and, gnosis and lifting ourselves up and having clarity of mind and a sense of purpose so that we have autonomy. Because as long as we're looking for someone to save us, as long as people still feel like they need a savior, as long as people are still looking for some president that's finally not going to be like every single fucking one of them has ever been, until we stop doing all that, we're not going to have a solution. The solution truly is us. And that process of self-discovery and self-awareness and elevated consciousness, as everyone has always been trying to tell everyone, is the only possible answer. Don't follow leaders, watch your parking meters. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Bob Dylan was trying to tell people this stuff in the 1960s. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, and this was true 200 years ago, 500 years ago. As long as we feel like we need leaders, people are going to be exploited. Nothing is going to change that. And the only way to escape it is for people to accept their own autonomy and their own independence, and to strive to justify that freedom and independence by self-mastery and conscious evolution. So, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe. Join us on Patreon because we're demonetized and we need your support in order to keep going. I have a video on deck probably for tomorrow about ayahuasca admixture plants. In case you're curious about that. Of course, most of them are too dangerous to use on your own, but it's still cool to know this stuff. I'm not necessarily suggesting that people go out and consume any of these things on their own, but education is important. Some of them are safe, and you could take them on your own. Bobinsana, guayusa, those kind of things, but certainly not all of them. So anyways, keep your guys' eyes out for that, and I will see you again very soon.